God.
She's dabbing in the porn industry now.
Is she really? You're kidding.
She's got to feed her babies.
Soft porn or hard porn?
She's actually being sued by a strip club, I think. She signed a contract and didn't go through it. That's
Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue. Based on some discussion with some of the commissioners, we want to go ahead and just go forward with all of them. So,
your pleasure.
So we don't stack up. Why don't we go ahead and start item 18A, legislative update. Secretary Mayor, staff will provide an overview of tracked state and/or federal legislation and provide deadlines and information regarding 2013 legislative session.
Okay, we only submitted 2 BDRs for the governor's review. Now, these are not fiscal BDRs, and those will come later. We have, I think, up to September, end of August, so those will be coming later. And the 2, one is the, and Chief Buonamici is here, one is the most of you all heard about the Federal Lacey Act. So if you kill something in one state, you can't take it to another state, and most states have the companion law to that, so that if there is a Lacey Act violation and we're contacted right now, we have to contact the federal agents, and you might want to come up here. I'm sure there'll be some questions. This would streamline it so that our wardens could just go forward and deal with that issue. So it's, Rob, did I capture that okay?
Yeah, basically what it is if you unlawfully kill or possess wildlife in another state, it would be unlawful to take that wildlife, bring it to Nevada. And that frees up, makes it real clear. You go poach an elk in Colorado, for example, you end up in Nevada with that poached elk. Colorado can call us, we can clearly seize it, cite them, arrest, whatever needs to be done, and handle that situation. A lot of the other states currently do that for us. We'll call them, and it just really clarifies their ability to deal with those situations.
Okay. Any questions on that?
I don't think so. That sounds like good.
Yes.
I thought this was already in effect. Didn't we discuss this before and it just didn't happen, or?
That is correct. It was discussed last legislative session at the Commission Legislative Committee, and it never made it to the legislature, actually.
But there's already some actions you do take now if that occurs. You can still.
Right, we can still, there are ways around it, but this just makes it clear and just clarifies everything for prosecution, streamlines the whole process.
The second one, Rob, you might even jump in here. The boat law cleanup on a stolen boat is to raise the limit to 2,000, is it?
There's 2 issues there. One is the boat accident. Right now, any damage over $500, you're required to report. We're required to investigate boat accidents, damage over $500. The federal limit, U.S. Coast Guard limit, is $2,000. We're proposing raising ours to $2,000, so it's commensurate with federal, and save a bunch of paperwork on the smaller accidents. $500 nowadays is nothing in damage. And then the other portion is with regards to stolen boats. Currently, you can't alter the HIN number, which is analogous to a VIN number on a vehicle. So we're clarifying that with regards, you can't alter hidden numbers as well. And there's hidden numbers throughout the boats, motors, and so forth to identify them as potentially stolen. So you can't alter those, and it clarifies that. It brings it in line with the current vehicle law that's on the books. So when other peace officers, because often these stolen boats are reported to police agencies, sheriff's departments, as opposed to us. Somebody's been, their boat disappears out of their garage and other items out of the house. They report it to the police or sheriff's department. and they investigate it. This would make it analogous to the vehicle statute for stolen vehicles, so they would know what to do, how to do it, and so forth. As opposed to calling us, okay, we got this, what do we do here? What do we do there?
Any questions there?
No.
And then in your report, you'll see where Kim has listed some of the federal legislation that's currently going. I did get an email yesterday, and the Farm Bill is moving on, the 2012 Farm Bill, with the wildlife title where we've been asking it to be from the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. So that's a good thing for wildlife, a good thing for private landowners as well. And I'm not sure that that's on her list. That would be in addition to.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners with respect to that informational item? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to Sage-Grouse update. Secretary Mayor, in accordance with the Commission's request, Director Mayor will provide an update on the status of Sage-Grouse, which is pending listing under the Endangered Species Act.
Okay, I thought Commissioner Robb did a great job describing what's going on with the governor's Sage-Grouse Advisory Committee. I'll just mention to you that the bi-state population, that's the parallel action that's going on with the greater sage-grouse. The action plan, actually the other day at the Executive Oversight Committee for the bi-state, I made the comment that think about where we've come in a year. We took the 2006 plan, developed an action plan from that, and added new actions that everyone knew and believed that we needed to do for sage-grouse in the bi-state. They developed that action plan. They've ranked it. The technical group has ranked it. The EOC has approved it. And we're currently in the process of funding the highest priority items. And the number one threat there is PJ encroachment. Wildfire and invasives is not. It might be the top in the top four, but primarily pinyon juniper. And there's quite a bit of work going on there. Pete Coates is doing quite a bit of work in the bi-state as well. The Nevada Partners for Conservation and Development, which the department staffs and I'm a part of the Directors Council, is working with the bi-state EOC to bring in dollars to fund the high priority projects for sage-grouse. I think we're making it very difficult for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I think their decision it is listed as threatened right now, so is the greater, but I think it's made it more difficult for them to find that way. The LEX survey is complete. We did both internal and we also got external funding to the tune of a little over $50,000 from private sources. And I think I reported on that last time. That opened a lot of people's eyes. We found grouse in places people thought there might be leks but didn't know that there were leks. We actually got in there and flew them with a helicopter. White Mountains is one, as well as Mount Grant. They found 100 birds in one lek that had not been found before. And it looks like we're going to have some money, and the dollars that you talked about with Sean, we can put some more collars in those Mount Grant birds, because we're pretty well convinced that they're connected to the Bodie Hills, but we need evidence of that, and won't until we actually capture them. And I would offer that when we get into the capture mode, if you guys would like to go out and catch sage-grouse, it's in the dark kind of a deal, like a snipe hunt, but we'll make sure that you have a good time. But we could certainly set that up as well. And then easements. Probably number two concern for the bi-state is the private land, because it's so essential for those hens to set up their nests and take their young to the private lands, which are doing flood irrigation, the pastures. That's where the bugs are, and some of those have been susceptible to conversion. And I got a call that the other day that the number one, it appears that one of the most important land ownerships, there's going to be an easement on it before the the listing decision. And then one of the properties at the bottom of the list, but still important, 4,000 acres that they decided for whatever financial reasons that they're entering into an easement with the Nature Conservancy. So there's quite a bit of movement going on outside of what NRCS is able to provide, and the jury's still out on how many dollars. I'm in the process of putting together a meeting the first couple weeks of July with all the organizations in the state of Nevada and outside that provide funding for conservation work, whether it's NBU Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, the Land Conservancy. We have a list of about 20 different organizations. We're going to invite them to a meeting to hear about the bi-state and to find out basically what they're interested in doing, what their limitations, what their requirements are, to build kind of a catalog, if you will, of the funders out there, and then try to then have a meeting with the private landowners and try to make a marriage, because not everybody's situation is the same. Some people are cash poor, some people are not interested in help paying their 25% match, but they need other assistance from foundations, conservancy. So we're moving forward with that. So I'm real excited what's happening there. The Executive Oversight Committee for the Greater Sage-Grouse, and I'm still chairman, I think through this year, will be meeting at the WAFWA meeting. It appears that the new governor's, it's the governor's Secretary of Interior Sage-Grouse Task Force. They've been meeting. That's at the highest level. They're writing us a letter to become more engaged, because the EOC, the national EOC, is more the nuts and bolts, how to get stuff done, identifying the conservation needs, and then actually getting the work done on the ground at that directorate level. These folks are at a higher level, at the governor's level and the congressional level, and how do they help us get this stuff done to make sure that we have the resources that we need and the political will to follow through with that stuff. So that's really all coming together pretty well. But then, of course, we have individual states things that are going on. It's incredible how much work is being done on sage-grouse. And Sean had just got back from the sage-grouse meeting, the technical meeting from WAFWA. It was in Steamboat, and it was 2 action-packed days, and there's a ton of people doing work on sage-grouse. So I'm real hopeful that cooler heads will prevail, and that we'll be able to have enough conservation measures in place that the service would be hard-pressed to list it. But that's my hope. We don't have any choice. We need to keep pushing as hard as we can.
Okay. Any questions or comments from any commissioners with regard to that item?
Yeah, question.
Yes, Commissioner Rain.
Thank you. If you remember, I think about 3 meetings ago, we had Ro Morales, the BLM Deputy Director for, I believe, Natural Resources, was at our meeting, and we discussed some of the do not control areas for wildfire, and at that time, he discussed that they had been, and I asked the question, I said, hey, these local agencies never heard of these things, and he said they were out there, and that he might have to work on just doing a little better of getting some of the agencies maybe to inform people of that. And I said, because the do not control areas for wildfire, specifically for pinyon juniper encroachment, to eliminate that in certain areas where there's just too much PJ. Well, I was out on a couple wildfires, it's one thing I do with the local volunteer fire department, and started talking to some BLM people, and I worked my way up the chain of command in the Battle Mountain District here, which takes over a whole section of the state. There are no do not control areas. If they are, the highest people at the chain of the command that drive around in fire trucks, the guys that are in charge of all this stuff, ain't never heard of them, don't have them. They've heard of possibility that maybe at some point in the future there might be. They don't exist. So, why aren't you guys telling us about these areas where we don't go? There are none. That doesn't exist. So maybe there's some disconnect there. Because that's one thing for the pinyon juniper encroachment that is call it the cheapest and easiest method. If you have a natural start fire in a certain areas that they have designated, we've been hoping they've been going to designate the letter rip, and they have not done that. in my speaking. And I would like to be shown that I'm wrong on that, and I got some really bad information, and that maybe they'll just roll that right down the chain of command, and I'd have some, oh yeah, here's the map. Give it to me, I'll show it to the guys.
Well, let me, I will check with Raul on that. I'm glad you mentioned that. It reminded me of two things I forgot. One is that Congressman Amodei, did I mention to you that he had this request to pull together, my words, a white paper on wildfire cheatgrass? What are we doing? And Dr. Turner, our coordinator for the Partners program, pulled the partners together, all the technical people, and we do have that white paper, and I can make that available to you. And the situation with wildfire cheatgrass is broken down into segments, whether it's suppression, suppression or restoration, et cetera, and it identifies what's involved with each one of those segments of this bigger issue, the policy considerations and where we need help, and the fiscal requirements and where we need help. And that was basically a cookbook, if you will, to the congressman. Well, if you want to do something for the cheatgrass wildfire, here's where you need to concentrate. The other thing is that I just approved $500,000 out of the Ruby Pipeline Fund to pay for 5 dedicated tankers in addition to the 5 we're already going to have this summer. So we'll have 10 air tankers in Nevada to protect sage-grouse habitat. And they asked us to pay for the standby time. And of course, the more fires they have, the more money will come from the suppression side of it. But it seemed to me to be foolish to say, well, we didn't have, dollars to do that. I did tell them that this is not something we can sustain in the long haul, that the federal government needs to step up to the plate and provide the resources. But they were looking for state input. They're going to put millions of dollars into this, you can imagine. So there will be an additional 5 tankers. And one of my criteria was that those tankers will be for Nevada and the surrounding border. So it won't be off to Montana somewhere to do fire suppression. That's for protection of sage-grouse habitat in Nevada, since that's our #1 threat.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the next agenda item.
He's been,
Mr. Schrum.
Mr. Chairman, on the sage-grouse situation, I have 2 papers here. I'm not going to get involved in them because the time is way late and everybody wants to get out of here. One's a white paper prepared by for the Elko County Commissioners, Western Range Service, dated May the 12th. And the other one is a reply to the BLM, also from Western Range Services. For the record, I'd just like to have them go ahead and have them submitted. So I won't go into them, time is too short.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
so you're going to submit them to,
I'll give this.
okay. If you wouldn't mind, when get these scanned and get these emailed out to everybody. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Schrum. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to 18C, which is the Sunset Committee Update Report. Chairman McBeath will report on the June 25th, 2012 Sunset Committee meeting. Just a background, as you're aware, we had there was an earlier Sunset Committee meeting, and neither Ken or myself got a chance to really testify much at that meeting, and it got off track, and we heard an extended period of public comment that was challenged the commission, and also the makeup of the commission, and even went so far as to call for the consolidation of the Department of Wildlife into the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. So this was the follow-up meeting to that Sunset Subcommittee, and they were having their workshop, and that gave us a second opportunity to testify. In advance of that, both the department and the commission sent letters that addressed some of the comments that were made in the initial Sunset Subcommittee meeting, and And so those did get delivered to the Sunset Subcommittee. And in addition, there were numerous letters that were also submitted by many of the NGOs and the Coalition, Safari Club and whatnot. So we really appreciate that. So for the actual Sunset Subcommittee meeting, we had a great turnout. Unfortunately, the turnout was so high on each side that the Sunset Subcommittee chairwoman had to limit the public comment period to 2 minutes each. Doesn't give you a lot of time to do much of anything. But I want to thank everybody that did show up and for their comments. Very extensive. A lot of the people in this room were there and made those comments, and so I want to thank all of you for that. What ended up happening, and unfortunately, there were 3 locations. They started at Elko, and comments at Elko. We had some great comments there. Had a number of kids get up and actually give their comments, and I thought that was great. Carson City, we had a big turnout there, and we went through all of those comments, again on both sides, but the sportsmen were there this time, and instead of not being present, we did show up and some really great comments. And then came back to Vegas, and I was the second one to testify, and unfortunately I had to bolt. So I didn't get to hear the rest of it, and I didn't get to hear what actually happened in the workshop. And so what I had done is I'd asked Kim Jolly to report back to me and let me know what happened. And so, in fact, I'm going to be reading or kind of going over what she had indicated happened after I got out. Obviously, there were additional members of the public, sportsmen and others that testified. Once they did go into their work session, there was an initial vote to, continue the, make a recommendation to the Legislative Commission that the Board of Wildlife Commissioners, continue. There was a further discussion, and where it ended up was they voted. There was a couple votes, but the vote that ended up going through was a voting to recommend that the Legislative Commission look into the area of the structure of the Wildlife Commission during the session. There were two of those members that opposed that, and so it looks like they're going to make that recommendation to the Legislative Commission. And so obviously we need to be present and do what we can there to further address. I think we need to be there every step of the way. But that was the motion that went forward. Chairman Bustamante Adams would not entertain Hartlow's motion to restrict terms, nor his motion to require that the Commission consider the first part of the mission statement of NRS, preservation and protection of wildlife. There was consensus that something is broken with the structure and that something should change. They would put a statement in the final report and suggested that people seek out legislative sponsors. So, not a surprise. We need to continue to move forward on this issue and be vigilant. And we know that the next step is the Legislative Commission. Again, we're going to be at the 2013 legislature here shortly, and I imagine that's where it's all going to end up. So anyway, that's the report. If there's others here that have anything else that want to add to that, again, I wasn't there. I'm reading from an email. If there's anybody else that wants to add to that report, feel free to let us know what happened. Gil, did you have a comment?
For the record, Gil Yannick, I was at the meeting and I testified, and the 2 minutes really cut everybody's legs out underneath them, but if you talked real fast, you could get what you once said. At the end, I forgot the general's name.
Chairwoman?
Yes.
Bustamante Adams?
Yeah, not Bustamante Adams. There was one member on the committee, he's a retired general.
Maggie Carlton? A man or a woman?
Man.
Oh,
Hartlow?
Saddlemeyer.
Hartlow?
No, Settlemeyer was next to him in the... Okay, thank you. And he came up, he made the recommendations. First of all, keep the commission as it is. Then he talked about a term limit, 2-year, 2-term. Then he talked about the makeup. He wanted to, have some additional variety in the makeup. And then Settlemeyer said, no, we want to use the term diversity. Because he talked, after the meeting, well, he started talking about women and makeup, hunters, non-hunters, stuff like that. And there were some issues that the chair wouldn't accept, and they said, well, we're going to refer all this to the legislative committee and let them decide how it will be presented. Now, the one comment that Settlemeyer did make with regards to the where the Department of Wildlife would wind up, he did say that he has other colleagues, and that was the words he used, colleagues, that were definitely going to introduce legislation to take the Department of Wildlife and seriously try to merge it back with natural resources. Now, I wanted to try to get to Leo Dolsdorf, because he lives right down the road from me. And I asked him, do you really want that headache? But, he was kind of non-committal at that point. But I think it went as well as we could expect at that level. But it was a good meeting. It was just, everybody, the comments made were good, and I think it was a good turnout by the sportsmen. But your comment was right on. When the legislative session opens, we're all going to have to be down there willing to appear before all the committees and represent wildlife and represent our views of what we think is the best way to go and why we believe in the way it is set up now.
Okay. Thank you, Gil. Okay, any other comment on that? Any commission comment, questions? Okay. (18D) Trapping Regulation Review Update. Chief Game Warden Rob Buonamici, Chief Game Warden Buonamici will present the department's proposed trapping regulation revisions, technical changes.
For the record, Rob Buonamici, Chief Game Warden. Just in the way of a quick summary, this process kind of ended up in 3 phases, so to speak. Phase 1 being SB 226 and the resulting regulation, which is now complete. The second phase, out of SB 226 process, an issue was identified or issues identified in Clark County that were somewhat unique to Clark County. So those are being addressed independently. So that's phase 2. And with regards to comments made yesterday about trying to keep things as similar as possible across the board with regs, with regards to Washoe and Clark County, we got a mock-up draft in process via the direction from the trapping committee. And what we did is amend, just for everybody's information, looking at amending NAC 504-340, which is areas closed to hunting and trapping, which is exactly how we handled the Washoe County situation. So that should be a pretty good blend, actually. And then phase 3 is there's a few other trapping regulations that have not been discussed, touched for quite some time. And what we did was went through those to try and update those regulations. And just a 30,000 foot view is visitation. We've had over the years issues, comments from DAs, judges that not real clear. So we're trying to clean that up. also looking at, I'm just giving you the highlights here, where to place traps, different types of traps, body gripping traps, do we want those in water, do we want them on land, or both, or what have you. So address that issue. Also looking at where traps can be set with regards to, and when traps can be set. So we're looking at adding a provision that would allow the commission to set a, quote, trapping season. And that trapping season could be in reference to fur bearers and unprotected. It could be year-round. There could be a closure portion of the year, what have you. But it allows the commission that flexibility. And then we went and wanted to look at snares. And there's been some issues regarding snares. Are they quick kill devices? Are they not? Are they subject to visitation? What have you. So that's the other issue. We're looking at breakaway devices. So if, larger animal, deer, bear, what have you, is caught, there's a breakaway device. So that's kind of the, 30,000 foot view. We have met with the Trappers Association and Trail Safe regarding this reg, given them kind of a preview of it. Again, it's kind of quite honestly, a draft of a draft. It's a starting point. We've had some feedback from both groups, some positive from a few sections and, more negative than positive, but that's okay. Everybody's, needs to work through it and have a chance to digest it. And quite honestly, we know it's not, anywhere close to perfect. So we're expecting a lot of public input, and we want that. So that's where we're at with that process. Also received a call from Critter Control, and they were also very interested in being included in the process and felt like they were left out. And I explained to them, we just hit what we consider the two main groups right now, and that there was no intent for us to negatively impact the pest control companies. So they were good, but, asked to be included. So that's the latest and greatest.
Okay. I will address in the next agenda item, actually in the committee assignments, what we're going to do with those Endow regulations, and I can assure the pest control companies that there's going to be more than ample opportunity to be involved in that process. So.
And just, I don't mean to get discussion going, it's just a point of clarification. These are technical modifications to the regs that the department has been putting together for quite some time. The committee has not seen these yet,
Yeah.
not even to date. Until Rob mentioned just now, I was aware of an issue with visitation that might be addressed, and I don't believe I knew of anything else on there. So this is going to be pretty green. Trappers and Trail Safe were definitely more in the loop on it to this point. So I just want to make that clear that this isn't something that the committee's had an opportunity to deal with or move forward with. It's just.
And I'll add to that that I don't believe anybody on the commission has really had any.
No.
I was given notice by the director that the Endow was coming forth with some technical cleanup regulations, but did not get into the substance of what those regulations were. And so anyway, I think we're all going to be seeing this for the first time. So actually, the Trappers and Trail Safe have seen a lot more about these regulations than anybody so far, and I think that was going above board, well beyond what was necessary. It was just more to kind of give not let there be a surprise, and so anyway, like I said, when I get to the next agenda item, I'm going to let you know what the next step is, and so anyway, okay. We've already done, okay, so any further comment on the trapping item? Okay. We've already done E, then that leaves F, litigation report. Dagnu, get us up to speed.
Short and sweet report. For Walker River, we are still in the same confidential settlement discussions. For Hage, I am not, a decision has not been issued by the court yet. For Carson Lake and Pasture, we are in the briefing process. We're briefing it for the Ninth Circuit. Truckee Carson Irrigation District, we were in mandatory mediation, which didn't really apply to us, so now we are in briefing. We're briefing the case for the court. Russell Elms, we're still waiting for the amended complaint. I'll probably file a motion to dismiss sometime in the near future. Brian Christie, due to a conflict in my schedule, the trial has been rescheduled to August.
Can I interrupt for a second? In there, it says chattel. Is it cattle or is it,
No, it's a legal term, actually.
what is chattel?
Personal property.
Property.
Yeah.
It's actually a word.
Thank you.
Well, thought I better ask some point. I've noticed it for a long time and okay, very good, thanks.
In Herndon, that I believe that case has been voluntarily dismissed, but it's in the process of being dismissed. I believe it has been filed, but I haven't seen it come across my desk yet. And the last one, we are in confidential settlement negotiations, and,
What about 7?
sorry?
Number 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cloud Foundation, we are also briefing that for the court. We have a briefing schedule. I think my brief is due sometime in September. That's all.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that agenda item?
Question about number 2, the Hage case. Now, there was something on that just here within this last month on that, wasn't there?
Not for this particular case. There are different lawsuits out there that relates to Mr. Hage and his, I believe it's his children, because he's deceased now, but for this particular case in the federal district, as far as I know,
Okay.
there has been no activity.
So that was probably a trespass case I know was decided in favor of Hage recently, and that's not directly related to this. And
We're not involved in that case.
Copy, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further, I'll go ahead and move on. Agenda item 19, Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners Committee assignments. Chairman will designate and adjust committee assignments, including the creation of new committees, the consolidation of existing committees, or the elimination of existing committees necessary. The commission will take action to approve revised committees and committee assignments as proposed by the chairman. Okay, so we got 2 items. The first is the legislative committee. That committee is chaired by Chris McKenzie, and Commissioner Drew and myself are also on that committee. Because of problems that we've had with 3-member committees, we decided that we would appoint, that I decided that we would appoint 2 additional members to that committee. And so we have contacted and gotten indications of interest from Tina Nappy. She's agreed to also join us on that committee, as well as Kyle Davis. We feel that these 2 individuals will add substantially to the committee as well. You know, obviously we have some strategic, there's some strategy going on there, and we think that they're well connected, and they've been through the legislative process substantially, and so I think they'll give us, the commission and the department, some good advice on this upcoming legislative session. So, and I believe that we're trying to set up a committee meeting, our first committee meeting, sometime in August, and I think we even have a date set, but anyway, we're going to move on that one. Second item, consistent with the trapping report that we got from Chief Buonamici, is I'm going to assign to the trapping committee, as if they don't have enough already. I'm going to assign to the trapping committee the new Endow regulations to be rolled out to the public, and you guys take public comment with respect to that. I anticipate that I'm hoping that you just have one maybe meeting up north to do that. I know you guys are stretched then, and so anyway, I'll let that be at your discretion, but I'm not expecting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
we also are under the pressure of temporary versus a permanent reg. So I think we're going to submit our draft proposal to LCB to get the ticker started.
Right.
'Cause
That had to be done before July 1, right?
Correct. And that'll get the process started. The committee can meet and bring forth recommendations, and there'll be a full-blown, commission hearing and public testimony and all that, but.
And I want to, every chance I get, because it's a complicated process, everybody needs to understand that is not a lockdown move forward thing. That's a placeholder, so that
Right.
we only have to go through the process once. We don't have to get into legislative session and it's a temporary where we have to bring it back after the legislative session. So it really is just a strategy for dealing with it. It's not a function of trying to pull anything, any fancy stuff or any funny stuff here. We'll get it vetted out. It follows the same process that the stuff we just proved today, CGR 406. It'll follow that same basic process. Is that basically it, Rob? I check with him every time because sometimes I get off the path, so.
No, for the record, Rob Buonamici, that's entirely correct. What I did want to point out is we're taking a bit of a gamble here from the standpoint of.
It's not going to be very significant.
Yeah, we're submitting it to LCB as a permanent. In the event, which it may, vary significantly from what we're submitting to LCB, they may say, go ahead and do a temporary because it's substantially different. So I just want everybody to know that up
Right.
front.
But to the extent that we can avoid it, we're putting in
Right.
place, we're taking the actions to try to avoid it. And obviously, if
Falls through,
if it, ends up being, substantially different, then we'll deal with that. But we're really trying to avoid that. We've been through that process before, and it's just a waste. There's a lot of time wasted in doing temporary and then following up with a permanent, so, okay. So with that, traffic committee
Got
has
it.
additional charge, and we'll move forward on that. So, go ahead, Commissioner Rob.
I have something when we're talking about committees, and it's not a committee that you assigned me to. It's something I was assigned to through a legislative action. And in the past 2 weeks, between Heritage Committee, Trapping Committee, Sage-Grouse Committee, and commission meetings, I've been able to get 3.5 days of work in a 10-day working period. And I missed a meeting. And that meeting is the Dream Tag Committee meeting. I've missed multiples of those. They're midweek, mid-afternoon. With my work schedule and my work location, a lot of time those are hard for me to get to. So I don't know, because the way the legislature set it up, it's the vice chairman of the commission that is assigned to that committee. I don't know if there's any possible way that I could excuse myself from that. We could appoint somebody else in that position, even if they're from Las Vegas and they're phoned in. I'm not sure if there's a way that we can get around this, but I do believe that the commission does need to be represented there. But the way it's been going right now, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
And this is the first anybody heard about it. That's why you have your look and who's over there scrambling and.
I remember the legislation pretty clearly. It
Right.
does call for in the law that the vice chairman of the Board of Wildlife Commissioners serves on the Dream Tag Advisory Board.
And Commissioner McBeath has looked at Jeremy, Dave, and I and expressed multiple times, hey, you guys are the breaking point, and I am not. My wife is.
Probably more important.
means by default.
And that's severe stuff there.
Okay, well,
Why don't we look into an alternative here, I think,
okay.
instead of shooting off the cuff, and so we can find some.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, it's nothing that needs to be cured today, but it is something, there is a cure. Oh. We could have a new vice chairman, and that would cure it all.
I see everybody, if you're watching, please stand up.
Okay, well, we can, we'll talk about that.
Yes. That does bring, in August, a new chairman and vice chair
Yeah.
will be elected, so.
We'll have to discuss that.
You only got to suffer for a month and a half.
It's a long time.
I know. Very long.
Okay, so that's all I had for committee assignments and additional charges. So move on to agenda item number 20, future commission meeting. Director Mayor, the next commission meeting is currently scheduled for August 10th and 11th in Winnemucca. Commission may change the time and meeting location at this time. Commission will review and discuss potential agenda items for that meeting.
We're all set, I believe, aren't we, Suzanne, for August? I would mention that the trapping regulation would be a prominent agenda item for that meeting. So we've got a month and a half to get our work done so we can have that. And I would certainly write down any agenda items that people would like to see, besides the standard ones that we have for that time period.
I don't have any right now. I mean, it's enough to deal with what we have currently on our plate, and so it's hard for me to think about the next commission meeting when we're scrambling to try to get this one,
Sure.
the current one, taken care of. So anyway, but if any commissioners do have anything that they want to get on the agenda, my email, and we can certainly look at that. Some of these meetings are tough because, the department comes forth with the necessary things that we need to be dealing with, and like all these regulations on this commission meeting, it poses some challenges to make sure we get through.
Right.
So, anyway, we will do everything we can. Okay, so any further discussion on that, Director Mayor? Any commissioners have any comments at this point? Okay, then let's go ahead and move into public comment period. Agenda item 21. Persons wishing to speak on items not on the agenda should complete a speaker's card and present it to the recording secretary. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. In addition to this public comment period, public comment limited to 3 minutes per speaker will be allowed on each agenda action item, but not on reports or informational items, which is moot because this is the end of the meeting. So, Vice Chairman, you want to go ahead and call off who we have for public comment?
Public comment, Hellstrom.
I'll pass. It's getting late. Everybody needs to get on the road.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking for anybody that had specifically down public comment. Don Moldy.
I could not. Mr. Chairman, Don Moldy-Reno, I want to say something nice about Commissioner Howell. When he mentioned today that he was not seeking reappointment, and that might leave a smile on some faces, I have to admit that I did have a smile at that point, but I will also say that it's not the only smile I've ever had as a result of what he said. He has made these meetings quite entertaining, and he has a wry sense of humor and a sense of timing that you don't see much anymore. And as an amateur comedian myself, I'm going to miss. You got some big shoes for somebody to fill when it comes to keeping the audience awake. But I did want to leave you with some good news. And today, while we were in this meeting, a press release came out from the organization that sued Wildlife Services recently in Las Vegas, Wild Earth Guardians. Probably seen it, there was a lot of press on it. They came out with a press release today listing the 10 deadliest counties in the West. That is Wildlife Services killing predators and whatnot. You might be interested to know that you're sitting in the deadliest county in the West. Of all the counties, Elko County is number 1 on the deadliest county list, I kid you not. Humboldt County is number 4 on the list. And White Pine is number 7. So out of the 10 deadliest counties in the West, according to Wildlife Services kill numbers, we have 3 in Nevada. Wyoming has 5, however, so we still have some work to do, obviously.
Okay. Was that it on the cards?
Joel.
Oh, Joe?
For the record, Joe Blakeslee, Nevada Trappers Association. I want to thank you all for working with us on this stuff, and thank you guys that are leaving. I do want to say one thing in response to something that Dr. Moley said yesterday. He said this is a good start. I'm here to say that we've worked through this stuff. I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and I think there's coming a time when we might want to look at an end game for all this trapping stuff. I mean, we were honored to be on this agenda 4 times this weekend. And quite frankly, I've been spending nothing but, I echo Jack Robb's comments. I have another life as well. I'll be here, you know, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm not in this for this being a good start. I'm in this for being a good end, and I would like to give some thought to the end game here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it on the cards. Okay, any additional public comment that, even if you don't have a card, you'd like to come up, let us know. Okay, seeing no
Ready?
further public comment, I'm looking for a motion to.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?